Hi guys, so as I've mentioned the DC4 by Fallkniven in several of my previous videos, I thought I'd just do a little review of it. Basically I'll start off very simply by saying it's great, you should get one, okay? I'll put a link to it, you can buy it from Amazon. I'm sure there's many other places you can get it from, but I got mine from Amazon, seems fairly easy. There are other DC numbers in the Fallkniven sharpening range. But I haven't tried or tested those, so I can't talk about them at this point. But there is the DC4. It is a small, you can see it's about the size of a, what is that, about the size of a very narrow mobile phone, I suppose. But it's very flat. It goes in a leather case that goes very easily in your pocket. It is smaller than a mobile phone, or a cell phone for the Americans out there. It's got, inside the leather case, you've got the sharpening stone itself, and on the back side an abrasive sort of metallic plate, which I believe is, I don't actually know, I think it's, it looks like brass, but I don't think it is. Now, as I understand it, that rear plate, the metallic plate, is supposed to be for kind of sort of the starting off of the sharpening process. So if you've got the edges a bit folded, this is a bit like a steel, I believe, a sharpening steel. That is to push back the metal in the direction it should be going, and then you carry on with the stone. From a personal point of view, I have, maybe because I don't understand it properly, maybe you guys can explain in the comments, but I have never used the metallic plate at all. I only used the stone as essentially a small whetstone. Okay, and I should mention that I hold the blade, or the sword or the knife or whatever, or the axe or whatever I'm sharpening, I hold it in my left hand, stationary, and I move the stone. Okay, now I do understand some people prefer to sharpen, in fact probably most people prefer to sharpen the other way around by placing the stone down on a surface and moving the blade across it. Personally, because I mostly sharpen swords, I find that's not really practical. Even if I'm using a bigger whetstone, a normal size whetstone, it's not really big enough to do swords like that very easily, and swords are fairly long objects. So I personally tend to hold the sword upright vertically, and I tend to move the stone and do the edge in short sections, essentially, because you can't do a sword blade in one draw because you'd need a huge stone to do that. From a practical point of view, it's very small, very light. This is the kind of thing, incidentally, that historically was sort of carried around and used to sharpen tools and swords back in the old days. Okay, so knowing how to sharpen, even if you prefer to use a big whetstone, knowing how to fix your edge and put an edge on things with a small stone is a useful skill to have if you're interested in developing historical sharpening skills. Obviously in the medieval period or the Dark Ages, or even in the in the kind of colonial period, they didn't have belt sanders, and equally they couldn't carry a massive whetstone or a grinding wheel around with them, so knowing how to do edges with this kind of thing is a useful skill to have. And frankly, if you get good at it, it's a lot easier sitting in front of the television or whatever, or sitting in your garden doing it with this than doing it with a piece of heavy machinery or a large stone. So the Fallkniven DC4, I highly recommend it. I love this little thing. I have got more expensive whetstones, better whetstones, bigger whetstones, and various types of grinding tools, but aside from a belt sander, which is probably going to give you the best edge in general, in terms of using smaller tools and cheaper tools, I highly recommend this. It takes some skill to get good with it, and for me the key, and I'll look at my sharpening methods in the future, I'm no expert on it at all, but several people have asked me about it in videos, so I will talk about it. But I would say the one key thing to using a stone like this, if you're moving the stone and holding the weapon or tool stationary, is keeping that angle constant, and that's the thing that really takes the time to get the requisite skill to do it. If you're changing the angle as you go across the blade, you're only going to blunten the thing. That it is really about having a completely constant angle, so that you're getting your edges to meet and you're not just rounding off that edge, which is what a lot of people do when they start trying to sharpen things. They end up just making them blunter. and certainly what I did when I started off learning. So there we go, Fallkniven DC4, highly recommended. I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but it'll be in the link below to Amazon. So go and get one, it's a useful thing to have in your kit bag. Cheers!